It is a distinct honor and a privilege for me to introduce my close friend and also partner, Ambassador Mosud Mannan. Ambassador Mannan is a career diplomat since originally January 21st, 1986. Since then, he's had diplomatic postings in London, Muscat, New York, as well as Beijing. His career has really been a rich career with many different postings. I'll tell you some of the highlights. He served as desk officer for the United Nations, systems manager, senior desk officer for West Europe, deputy chief of protocol, director general responsible for research, and director general of international organizations for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's also served as a member of the Board of Governors of the BISS in 2005. In terms of his education, he has a BA, LLB, and an MMS in economics from Dhaka University, as well as an MA in International Affairs from the Fletcher School of Long Diplomacy in Boston, USA, the same state where I'm from. He completed a year-long national defense course as well from the National Defense College of Bangladesh in the year 2006. Before his posting in Berlin, the ambassador served as ambassador of Bangladesh to the Kingdom of Morocco, with a concurrent accreditation to Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. Currently, as you know, he is the ambassador of Bangladesh to Germany, with concurrent accreditation in Austria, Czech Republic, Slovak Republic, Hungary, and Slovenia. So we're really looking forward to his presentation, where I believe he'll be focusing on the Silk Road and Bangladesh. But beforehand, we have a brief introductory video about Bangladesh. So maybe we can give a warm welcome to the ambassador, and then I will start the video. So Ambassador Mosud Mannan, thank you.
In the school of life is about endless learning. Feel the vibe of the longest beach, learn the power of inner strength. It's Royal Bengal Tiger's territory. For dangerously sweet reward, learn how to collect honey. Unlearn. Give yourself the surprise you deserve. Yes, you always loved racing. Learn to race without wheels. Here, every home is a school of celebration. When the heart opens, you suddenly learn to accept the invitation of happiness in its fullest version. See how hope defeats all boundaries. And how meaning of inner silence revealed in words. Experience the spirit of freedom in the air. The father of nation, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, liberator of Bangladesh, rests here. Silence. Every alley has a story that embraces. Who else can tell you to love your language more? Feel the monsoon magic. You will learn the true meaning of warmth here. Here, life happens. Welcome to the School of Life. Admission going on. Welcome to beautiful Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah. And thank you, audience, for having me this morning, this Saturday morning. A very good morning to all of you. Actually, it has been almost 2 years now that we have been working very closely with the Institute of Cultural Diplomacy here in Berlin. And I thank Mark for always keeping us in mind. And just side by side, he is organizing this Berlin International Economic Congress with ITB. You popularly know it as ETB. And it's a great honor and privilege to say something to put Bangladesh on the Silk Road, because since it's an economic congress, you have to cover the trade side, but at the same time, ETB is tourism. And Silk Road has been for 1,000 years famous for promoting both. And so my topic today will be Bangladesh on the Silk Road. And I also, once again, thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. You will all know that as Bangladesh emerged as an independent nation following the heroic liberation war of 1971, it was left devastated and lacking both human and economic resources for development. And the sheer need for survival and growth has meant a great concentration on immediate priorities for social and economic development. I think I may, with justification, claim that the progress in this work matches that of any other less developed nation anywhere in the world. It is perhaps only now, though still deficient in resources to allocate to such work, that we are examining and considering our history and heritage and the role they can play in our economic and social development, particularly through travel and tourism. You will be aware that comprising the greater part of the historic area of Bengal and parts of ancient kingdoms such as those of Assam, Tripura, and Arakan, the lands of Bangladesh are largely based around the world's largest river delta, that of the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, and Meghna rivers. These are three of the greatest rivers, not only of Asia, but of the world. And it is unsurprisingly these rivers that are at the foundation of our history and heritage and our present success in economic and social growth and development. You will all be aware of the famous Ganges Basin civilization that blossomed along the Ganges from perhaps the 3rd millennium BC, that this industrialized civilization extended even to the delta lands in unsurprising. It is clear from the archaeological treasures emerging from the excavations undertaken over the past 14 years by the School of Archaeology of Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh, that both trade and manufacturing was undertaken at Wari Boteshwar, a site identified by Professor Dilip Chakraborty, Professor of Indian Archaeology at Cambridge University, with Swarnagora in the Ptolemaic Gazette of the 2nd century CE, are consistent with other such work in the Ganges Basin. We are also aware that an excavation undertaken in 1935 by British archaeologists produced evidence of similar finds. These finds include silver punch coinage, carbon dated to 6th century BC, some of the earliest in the world, together with extensive finds of tools, weapons, jewelry, and gems, pottery and metalwork, as well as evidence of Neolithic origins in the form of stone tools and weapons. A Bronze Age pit dwelling is also amongst the sites slowly being excavated. In fact, we have every reason to believe that with adequate expertise and resources, as we continue to tackle the history that lies beneath the grounds of these alluvial plains, we shall uncover a history far richer than any of us hitherto even considered. Early manufacturing that took place in these areas clearly led to the growth of a history of trade and commerce in the area in and around the Gangetic Delta. The famous Roman historian and geographer Strabo, in his Geographia published in 17 CE, in what may well be the earliest example of academic distrust of mere business people, writes, "Concerning the merchants who sail from Egypt, even to the Ganges, they are only ordinary citizens and know nothing of the history of the places they visit." This is perhaps the first written mention of Ganges River itself in Western literature. But the fact that in maps published in Europe in the first centuries of the Common Era, such as those of Pomponius and Ptolemy, both consisting of remarkable accurate routes of both Ganges and Brahmaputra, is also clear evidence of traders visiting the region and the rivers. In fact, we have every reason to believe that Strabo may well have been right in his low opinion of the merchants trading in the area. In the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, the Sailor's Guide to the region published about 50 CE, the Ganges is mentioned as the place to buy raw silk from an inland city called Thina. Had the Han emperors known how little recognition their rising empire received, their annoyance might have been mitigated by the extent of that trade in silk that came so close to bankrupting the Roman economy. We are told that the wearing of silk was forbidden in Rome to reverse the balance of trade on that account. Unsurprisingly, the finds at Wari Boteshwar, a 2-hour drive from the capital city Dhaka, include Roman glass beads of that early period. However, the Chinese archaeologist Bin Yang, in his work Between Winds and Clouds, published in 2004 by Columbia University, New York, A History of the Ancient Chinese Province of Yunnan, is quite clear about the existence of the Southwest Silk Road, the existence of which the people of Yunnan successfully hid from the emissaries of the Han emperors. Allowing the emissaries to believe that trade with India was still undertaken through the province of Tibet and through Afghanistan, they built trade through Upper Myanmar on the historic Ledo Road, last used during World War II to supply Chinese freedom fighters. It appears that the road divided between heading a short route into Assam to reach the Brahmaputra after its turbulent passage through the Himalayas, and thence by river to the sea, or following a land route through fabled Mandalay and reaching the coast, including at a small Bangladeshi town called Ramu, that appears by name even on Ptolemy's 2nd century map on the Ganges Delta. Bin Yang notes, interestingly, both the existence of money cowries, identified as originating in Maldives in tombs of 3rd century BC in Yunnan, and the content of Malaysia tin in the copper-rich bronze of the Chinese Bronze Age, suggesting that the trade may be of greater age than we might otherwise have considered. The documentary evidence of the appeal of the region may begin with Meganthesis, the 3rd century BC Greek traveler, who remarks upon the retreat of the army of Alexander the Great from the lands of the Ganges, because his troops were alarmed at the stories of the many large elephants the kings of the area possessed. And there seems, of course, little doubt that the prospect of the rich trade of the region both attracted Alexander but also afforded the local rulers the financial strength for their own protection. That the region around the Ganges Delta continued to attract visitors appears to lend credence to the belief that trade continued to excite international attention. Ibn Battuta, the Moroccan traveler of 14th century, was a visitor, as was an English merchant named Ralph Fitch, whose late 16th century journey was noted by Shakespeare in his Scottish play Macbeth, when the first witch tells Macbeth her husband to Aleppo has gone. He is master of the Tiger, and Tiger was the ship that carried Fitch and his companions to Aleppo on the first stage of their voyage, which interestingly carried them from Aleppo to sail down the Euphrates and onward to India, a route we have every reason to believe was historically a major trading route from early times, though Fitch crossed India by land, whilst there is much evidence that early traders in fact sailed around India to take this reverse silk route up the Brahmaputra from the delta. Even Daniel Defoe, in his immortal novel Robinson Crusoe, written in 1717, in the original unabridged children's version, sets Crusoe's last adventure in Bengal, trading in opium and diamonds. There is evidence of a string of ancient settlements on or close to the route of the old Brahmaputra that made such a significant shift in the early 19th century, about 100 kilometers west of its original route. Our ancient centers of international trade are many. Ancient port of Barisal, Vikrampur, a large city at the mouth of both Ganges and Brahmaputra, now mostly under the ground, where preliminary exploration have been just started. Mograpara, believed to have been the capital of the first Muslim invaders, the Khiljis. Sonargaon, now visibly a 19th century merchant center, but with a history yet to be more comprehensively explored. Wari Boteshwar on the banks of old Brahmaputra, and likewise Egara Sindur, and of course ancient Mahastangad and so far identified 6th century CE city-state Vitagar are some that are gradually giving out the rich heritage and history long hidden from human eyes. Then there are such ancient centers of trade as Chittagong, Rajshahi, Rangpur, all with archaeology as yet unexplored. But it is the circumstantial evidence of the flourishing international trade that was going on in Bangladesh that is a part of our history. It takes both considerable wealth and the peace which, as the great Baron de Montesquieu in the 18th century observed, is the natural consequence of trade. The Ganges Basin civilization was the ground in which the great Hindu religion evolved out of shamanic and animist traditions, then gave birth to both Jainism and Buddhism, and in Bangladesh there lies the greatest concentration of Buddhist vihara in the world, estimated by experts at over 300 in number. There is little doubt that Buddha visited and preached in what is now Bangladesh, as it was a part of the empire of his first powerful convert, King Bimbisar of Magadha, an empire that's reached across the lands of Bangladesh to the Brahmaputra and the Silk Road that ran up it. There is little doubt either that it was in these affluent and largely peaceful lands that the Mahayana school of Buddhism developed, and from where Buddhism spread along the trade routes into particularly Southeast, East and Central Asia in the 12th century Bangladesh, born famous monk Atish Dipankar almost certainly used the Southwest Silk Road to travel from Bikrampur in Bangladesh to Tibet in response to invitation from Tibetans to restore the Buddhist tradition there. There seems little doubt either that Bangladesh made its own contribution to the spread of Islam. It is certainly true that our first substantive evidence of Arab traders lies in Lalmonirhat, in the north of Bangladesh, where the ruins of a mosque with a dating tablet of 691 CE are close to the junction of Tista and Brahmaputra, since we know that Tista leads to Sikkim and through mountain passes into Tibet. It seems a reasonable assumption that here was a choice of routes for ancient traders, including the Arab traders, who had almost certainly been visitors to for centuries before the lifetime of the Holy Prophet. Finally, of course, the gathering of the European trading nations around the Ganges Delta represents a continuing certainty of flourishing trade. By then, Bangladesh was already developing its own exports trades in such as muslin, indigo, opium, and even rice. But it seems unlikely that such exports could account the fabulous wealth accounted for by the eventual winners of the prize amongst the European nations, that is Britain. In his letter to the Board of East India Company in London, justifying acquiring the revenue collecting rights for Bengal, Orissa, and Bihar, Lord Clive wrote that the Diwani rights, as they were known, that he had secured from the weakened Mughal rulers in Delhi, would defray all the expenses of the investment, furnish the whole of the China treasure, answer the demands of all your other settlements in India, and leave a comfortable balance in your treasury besides. And he wasn't wrong. The wealth that poured out of the region both financed the buildings of much of the palatial heritage of Britain and of greater universal value, perhaps a large part of the Industrial Revolution. Following the Act of Permanent Settlement in 1793 under Lord Cornwallis, it also financed the building of up to 120 palaces, which remain in varying states within Bangladesh, and finally, a great heritage of roads, railways, bridges, forts, schools, universities, colleges, hospitals, and other public buildings and services. This then briefly, but I am afraid not too briefly, is the history of the Southwest Silk Road, which for over 2,000 years was a part of the commercial history of the world. And I'm grateful for the opportunity today to add it to your Great Silk Road project initiative of the ITB and the UNWTO. Especially every year in ITB, there is a project at the ministerial level which is actually put forward by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, which is called Silk Road Project Initiative. And that's why I congratulate you, listeners, that you have learned a little bit about the position of Bangladesh and how we prove about it, that we are also on the Silk Road. And last but not least, which I just came across, is Zhang Ho, the famous admiral of China. In the 14th century, he also traveled to the Chittagong port city during the time of Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah. And those also proves that there was enormous wealth and trade and tourism links through Bangladesh up the stream of Brahmaputra via Tibet, which helped us to do business with different parts of Asia, not just China, and up to Europe, especially at the beginning with Rome. So I thank you for your patient hearing, and if there are any questions, I'm ready to take it. Thank you very much.